Good morning, good evening. Welcome, everybody. So glad that you could join us today, or as I should say, evening. I know that some of our Australia customers are also chiming in this morning. So welcome, everybody. We have an exciting session here. We're going to go through some great Q&A in different areas, all designed around how we keep our customers safe, how you keep your environment safe, leveraging Azure technology in a hybrid world. And you'll be able to have some great questions and hopefully we'll give you some good answers on those. Today, I have a group of great experts that are here joining us. And one of our key special notes comes from Rodney Masney, who's here. And let me just give a little bit of background on Rod, who's really our guest speaker from O&I Glass, many years in the industry and driving a professional team, over 150 resources across multiple continents, and is really accountable for driving IT and architecture and applications and SAP, engineering solutions. So a wealth of knowledge that we welcome Rod today and joining us. We're also very happy to have our Microsoft specialists and having Carl here today, who's really from, I always like to say, those good old Azure black belt specialties that we have, and is really going to bring some of the expertise and experience of what we've seen from that perspective as well. And to that level, we can't forget that our DXC specialty in really bringing our account team, who lives and breathes with Rod and O&I Glass, from Shane, from living in the interactions daily with making sure that 7x24, our business and support, is there. Chris, looking at the innovation and next generation of growth and opportunities that we bring, and Praveen from a technical support in really looking at, as the chief technologist, how do we bring industry needs and technology needs together. So I'm very happy to have our experts with us today. Why don't we just share a little bit about O&I for you, because it's just so impressing, and I really love to take something that's close and dear to heart to me. How many of you have really been out there? I'm constantly, be it virtual shopping or out really looking at the shelves, of how before you grab that plastic bottle, you always think, where's the glass? How do you find the glass? And so what's incredible is that O&I has over 6,000 customers, 17 factories, and operates in over 20 countries. Now, what's very key on that is that they've been operating for over 100 years. That's whether it's through pandemics, 2 world wars, prohibition, the energy crisis of the 70s, to every aspect in country economic crisis, O&I has been there. And what's absolutely incredible is that the recycling component of a glass jar or glass bottle is the clear choice for health in today's, not only today's, but in every conscious decision that we make in keeping our planet safe. Did you know that glass is the kindest packaging choice for our planet, and that glass is 100% recyclable? Now, what Rod did remind me is that it's not just recyclable, it's infinitely recyclable. That is, that it can move completely and become new glass. And then this is really key and important, in less than 30 days from recycling back to the shelf again. So I think it's something dear and close to my heart. And with that, why don't I start some of the questions, because we want to hear from the experts. So Rod, perhaps you could start with sharing some of their strategies and how you're driving and reaching your goals with the technology decisions that you bring every day.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for the commercial for OI Glass. OI Glass is one of the most hidden brands on the face of the planet because every day consumers pick up products from our customers, either in the beer, wine, spirits, food, or non-alcoholic beverage industries. And you know those brands, but they're better than 50-50 chance in the markets we serve. It's one of our glass containers. So, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. OI is over 100, almost 120-year-old company, and glassmaking is over 3,000 years old. And we're at a moment in our cycle, if you will, where technology innovation is becoming more and more and more important, including the platform we make glass with. And digital transformation in our company will start in manufacturing. And you know, technology is a very, very fundamental part of what we're trying to do as a company. And one of the reasons that I engaged with DXC as we looked at the next iteration of our contract and manufacturing, or our technology platforms, is the ability to really transform that, provide 7x24 capabilities, and protect our environment from failure. Which is where Azure Recovery Services comes in. And there's an old saying in glass manufacturing: glass never stops flowing. Even on holidays, glass is flowing in our manufacturing plants, and we have to be up, running, and things operating, and that's what we've entrusted DXC with.
Awesome, that's great. And with that, I think maybe you can share some of the considerations that you probably asked DXC, asked Microsoft, asked our teams to consider as you were putting your whole continuity plan together. As you said, right, 7x24, it doesn't matter. So what are some of the considerations that you needed to bring our teams to make as a priority?
Yeah, OI's been doing business with DXC, what was at that time EDS, since 2008, and we had architected collectively, mostly with the support of DXC, technology platform for the crown jewels of what we run. Things like SAP, that's running all the financial transactions and order taking and movement of glass and shipments to our customers through our enterprise platforms, and around SAP, all the Halo systems that come along, financial reporting to Wall Street, et cetera, through software like Hyperion, and those are the systems DXC was taking care of for us. And we had a very tried and true method for disaster recovery: take backups, move it to another center, long lead times for RPO and RTO. That was a design. We built that for, the late 2000s, early 2010s. As we began to look at the next iteration of our contract, I asked, I need better. I want better recovery point objectives. I want better recovery time objectives. And the DXC team brought a solution forward that we hadn't even thought about, which was Azure Recovery Services. We had very good RPO, RTO for our SAP systems, but we wanted to really give a boost to the Halo, if you will, all the things running on Microsoft platforms outside of SAP. And not only did DXC help us with our SAP platform, improving that, but also Azure Recovery Services, and we just recently tested that. And I would say it was the first test that we did for disaster recovery since the transformation, and the RPO statistics that we were able to achieve and RTO far exceeded my expectations. And quite frankly, I think what was in the contract, now don't write that down, guys, but far exceed our expectations. And for the first test since a transformation was very, very well done.
Great, thank you, and I, appreciate the team, and I know it's a lot of hard work from everyone in driving that. So, and we will get into some of the architecture components, but I did want to bring up because, I think maybe even Carl and some of the Microsoft team are saying, well, why not everything Azure, or why not everything on-premise? Maybe you can share your thoughts, some of your decisions, and how you brought, a joint hybrid model into your priorities and your strategy.
Yep, I apologize to Microsoft and all the hyperscalers out there in advance, but we are not a cloud first company. We're a cloud where it makes sense company. My deep belief is people that jump head first, feet first into the cloud, get a rude awakening. Yeah, they get great service, they get great solutions, but they also get a lot of cost that goes along with that. And in this instance, using Azure Recovery Services, we're a very cost-effective solution, and it just made sense for us. And we have Azure workloads for other applications that, again, just make sense. Cost-effective, they're designed right for cloud type services. They, the right MIPS, sorry, I'm an old mainframe guy, the right MIPS, the right memory requirements, and the right storage requirements, and incredibly cost effective. But if you throw caution to the wind and go all in, you could be in a very, very expensive situation. It's not a Microsoft problem, that's a cloud problem. So just to be fully transparent, and this made good sense for us.
That's great, and I'm sure, Carl, we see a lot of that mixture, and as you said, what's right, what makes sense, what those workload decisions are, et cetera, that we drive into. So no, that's perfect. That's great. Let me maybe turn it to Shane. You're supporting Rod's strategy and bringing those right ideas and solutions. Maybe you can share how, taking it as you've lived this hybrid mix, some of the decisions and the importance of what you see from a continuity plan, right? Not just an ASR plan, but your thoughts from a continuity.
Well, first of all, it was really important for us to be joined at the hip with OI as we went through this process, and really understanding and having a deep understanding of their applications. DXC is responsible for the delivery of their continuity plan. And like Rod said, he wanted some fairly aggressive RPO and RTO SLAs, 4 hours and 12 hours for high priority systems. So understanding OI's environment, understanding their applications, understanding the interdependency of those applications and how they work, how they need to be restored, what services need to be brought up first, and how they have to all talk to each other. That's critical for us to be able to minimize any business impact that OI would have. DXC is responsible for hosting and providing the system management for most of OI's IT environment, and most of it's hosted in our data centers. We also provide a lot of the application management for OI's applications, including the two that Rod mentioned, SAP and Hyperion. So we work very closely with OI's team, with the full IT team of Rod, as well as OI's business testers on a yearly basis as we conduct a full test of the continuity plan.
Excellent, great. Now, I think as we've heard, a lot of us from really understanding what comes into play in a model when you have the goals, have the objectives that we have to bring. Now, Praveen, from a technologist perspective, perhaps you can share a bit of that framework in the design, because it's not easy plug and play, I'm sure.
Right. So one of the coolest things about this solution is that it's not very often in our careers that we get to solve a problem very effectively and yet reduce costs dramatically, right? So this is one of those scenarios where we had this opportunity where we were not only able to exceed the RPO and RTO requirements, but also do that extremely cost effectively. So before we implemented this solution, as Rod mentioned, we had a situation where our workloads were running, our OI's workloads were running in 2 data centers in almost an active-active fashion. With the introduction of this solution, we were able to move the entire workload into a single data center and yet protect those workloads using Azure Site Recovery, right? So we needed to choose a solution that would guarantee recovery in the case of a disaster, right? So we had to be sure that this technology not only worked, but it would work in the case of a disaster, right? So this is OI's insurance policy. So we had to choose a promising technology that would live up to the expectations and requirements. And the way we did this was we used a significant amount of automation, right? So what we did was you can see in this diagram that on the left-hand side, you have the data center workloads, and in the middle, you have the network constructs that enable connectivity into Azure. And in the middle of that management plane, you have a recovery vault. And one of the requirements that OI gave us was that, hey, not only do we want to run these disaster recovery protected workloads, but we want to be able to test these, right? We want to be able to run disaster recovery drills. And when we run these drills, we do not want to impact our live users. And even more importantly, there should not be any data corruption in the production systems. So these DR drill environments would have to be completely isolated from the rest of the world, and we would have to test in a bubble, right? So that's what that top right corner enables, right? The DR drill VNet. It's essentially a bubble where we can run a DR drill without impacting anything else. In the bottom right corner, you will see the actual DR VNet that would come into play when a disaster occurs. Now, it's actually easier to provision a DR environment using this approach than to provision a DR drill environment, because you have the production environments and the drill environments running in parallel. So we had to take some additional steps to isolate those environments. But at the end of the day, whether you're running the drill environment or the actual disaster recovery environment, it's all based on Azure automation playbooks. You know, you push this one big red button, few minutes later, we have all these resources provision, and we go change some network settings and DNS entries, and boom, you have users connected to the drill environment or to the DR environment. Obviously, I'm trivializing a lot of the mechanics here, but that's essentially the high-level approach, right?
Awesome. Go ahead. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, and lastly, I already covered this, but it had to be a proven solution. And we know Microsoft had acquired this product. I don't remember the original product name, and has tightly integrated the product into the larger Azure ecosystem. And we knew we could count on this product, right? Because of all the years of experience that was put into this product. And at the time when we were making this decision, I believe this was the only disaster recovery as a service that was truly viable from a public cloud provider standpoint, which is why we chose this solution.
Awesome.
Back to you, Patty.
Great, thank you. And I don't know if you guys caught the we. I love it when our teams are so integrated, right, Rod? So that's a good one there that I think comes in. So let me just maybe, Carl, I think there were some points there as well that Praveen was sharing, but you live and breathe this every day. Perhaps you can share a bit, maybe tied in with what Praveen was talking about, but how you are really looking at the hybrid mix and how that does tie in, right? Because you see and you're out there real life with customers. So perhaps you could share your perspective on what you're seeing across hybrid scenarios on the with your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to, Patricia. And I just have to say, I mean, this whole session to date has been fantastic. Really, there's so much goodness to unpack here, and I want to start answering your question by saying, Rod, absolutely no offense whatsoever about your comment earlier about some things should never, will never move to cloud. We agree as well. I mean, we're absolutely 100% invested in hybrid, whether it's Azure Arc or the Azure Stack family. We believe the same thing, and it's any number of reasons why moving applications to a public cloud environment don't make sense. And you were spot on. That phenomenon that you referred to with people who kind of charge in, guns blazing, not measuring twice before they cut. I saw that so many times over the last 8 years that I refer to that as cloud remorse. Not thinking it through, diving in, and then having those huge regrets after the fact. But this is absolutely one of those hybrid use cases that makes perfect sense. Shane, loved your comment on understanding the application and how everything's related. As Praveen highlighted, this can be out of the box, a fully automated solution. And if you don't know that order of operations, what needs to come up first for an application to start properly, that can lead to an undesirable outcome, like I had when I was responsible for recovery operations at a very large electric utility here in my home state of Florida. And Rod, I can sympathize. We were able to test once a year. It was incredibly complex, and in 4 years in that role, I succeeded exactly 0 times to execute a DR plan successfully per my run book. Being able to test non-disruptively, being able to test with push button simplicity, make sure that you can be successful, and when the business needs to operate, when the proverbial meteor comes screaming at your hosting data center, you can go ahead and do that. So yeah, absolutely, Patricia, everything that we've discussed, I've seen over and over again throughout my 8 years here and helping customers adopt Azure in ways that make sense. And Praveen, that early version of Site Recovery came from InMaj Scout, which, not a common household name, but you're absolutely right. We refactored that and turned it into a true as-a-service offering rather than kind of force fitting it into an infrastructure as a service style offering. So I mean, really, this echoes my experience as a customer. It echoes my experience with my customers now here at Microsoft, and I just love to see stories like this because it just exploits every valuable thing that we bring to the table with as a service offerings like this. And thanks to the DXC team for doing the upfront work around the dependencies and then helping O&I to realize this as a valuable solution. This is phenomenal. I mean, just a great partnership.
If I could interrupt for a minute, Carl, in the old days, anytime you wanted to see improvements in RPO, or recovery point objective, RTO, it was a simple equation. You needed more hardware, you needed more licensing, and guess what? You needed more money. My perception about this is it is a situation where you can have a little bit of it all. You can improve your RPO times, you can improve your RTO times, and the monetary difference is, I think it was less at the end of the day versus more. So this is one example in my career I can think of where we can have it all and improve our environment. And again, not when you have a hammer, sometimes everything looks like a nail. This is perfectly suited for the kind of workloads we're running at DXC. Some of the workloads we're running there and was the right solution. Now, anytime a CIO takes a leap of faith like this, you got to hope you have the right partner that's working on it and can deliver. And we've been very, very fortunate. And shame on me be saying partners, because Microsoft is also a key part of this partnership as well.
Love it, and couldn't agree more. By the way, I remember walking into my division president's office to deliver the budget for that live replica DR that we ended up configuring at that utility, and thinking this was the biggest career limiting moment of my life. And thankfully, I made it through. We did a business impact analysis to prove that we needed it. But this is certainly much simpler. I mean, no redundant infrastructure to purchase. That's massive savings. So yeah, thank you. Couldn't agree more.
Great, thanks. Well, let me maybe bring it to Chris before we get on some of the keys. I know we have about 5 minutes or so. Chris, you're there living, breathing with the team as well. I think a lot of the sessions, and I was kind of laughing today on one of the Microsoft sessions where they said it's all about data. And I think I said, oh gosh, I'm aging myself, but I think I've said that for probably 20 years or more. But it's data, it's the applications, etc. So perhaps you can share some points around how it's not just an IT discussion. You've got to definitely be part of the application family, the R&D app team, etc. Can you share some of your thoughts, Chris, on how you've worked with O&I or even in your history of guiding of the interaction with the apps team?
Sure, Patty. By all means, I mean, I guess to be repetitive or sound repetitive, I mean, Shane's already said it. I mean, the applications were key. We've been working with OI since 2008. The key to our success was really understanding those applications that were candidates for Azure. And we had a series of extensive discussions with the greater OI team. And again, coupled with our history, work with the account, we determined which applications made the journey, which were ideal candidates to put into the Azure setup. Some applications we even mutually agreed weren't even going to go for the ride. Some of them were sunsetted and didn't go into any further discussions. I mean, this was a new hosting alternative for OI to undertake. There was a lot of thought process put into this, which made sense. I mean, Rod's made the statement about the crown jewels, and we definitely took that very seriously. And there's a lot of the applications in that halo, as he discusses, that were also key, and they're part of the Azure setup today. So the environments were critical. The application knowledge was critical.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I do have one, and we'll see if some others might come in, but one of the questions, I think comes back to you, Rod, there's a lot of people in our audience, some at the decision making, some of the app owners, some technical, but perhaps you could share your words of wisdom, just as you started to, about the decisions and how you make from a private cloud to a public cloud to those technology decisions. As you said, they're risky in some perspective, but any words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience today? I think you're on mute.
Do you know how many times a day I hear that? You can count the number of meetings I'm on and hear that, and you'd know. But in all seriousness, I mean, I did say a little bit about that. You have to really look at the workloads you have and be considerate of what the implications are of putting that workload in the cloud. You know, Microsoft has provided tools to clients. There's tips and tricks around how to save money. And look at this is a perfect example. We're going it alone. Doesn't make a lot of sense. You could wreak a lot of havoc if you don't have a partner that knows what they're doing with this kind of thing. So having smart people around you to help you with this is incredibly important, and you just have to be thoughtful about what you're putting in the cloud. We have very predictable workloads. Okay, we're not big retailers that have unpredictable workloads. We're a good old-fashioned hardcore commodity manufacturing company with very, very predictable workloads. And in that scenario, if you're using things like virtualization, you can get some of the cloud effects without being in the cloud and help manage your cost by, we're a capital intensive company, milking the life out of the assets that you have. In some cases where you have highly volatile workloads, perfect solution to move to the cloud. So there's a lot of thought you have to put in it, and you just don't throw caution to the wind. You have to be thoughtful and try to do the right things to make sure you get the right outcome. So we've entrusted a lot to DXC, and we'll continue to do so, and look forward to continuing this journey. And we have other workloads around the world that have potential for this. So let's see what's next.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Please go out and visit the Ignite DXC site. Thanks a lot, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.